Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are from. I am your host, Sean Keenan. As always, I have my co-host here, Stephen. How are you going tonight, mate?
I'm good. Oh, look, I don't know if many people know, but Australia actually had a whole stack of public holidays, and they've just been all stacking up. So it's been quite a lot of 4-day weeks. Actually, I think 3 lots of 4-day weeks. So it's going to be weird. This is actually the first week I think there's nothing. It's,
Unless you're in Queensland, Queensland has another 4-day week this week,
oh, lucky them.
which is crazy. But on that note, I do want to say, guys, that I apologise. I popped up this this one late this afternoon. We are getting back into a schedule, as you would have known. I had COVID. I was off for a bit of time, but we've got some really cool guests lined up over the next couple of weeks. We will have them all posted in advance on the YouTube and on our Twitch. You'll be able to see those. We can book them out plenty of time in advance, but there are on Facebook will only let us do a week in advance. So if you are following us, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash that notify bell so you know when we go live. And I promise over the next month, we're going to have some really cool updates. Just quickly, we have sent out all the digital rewards for Fractured Shards Volume 2, which that is super exciting. So we said we're going to fulfill in April, and I was able to get all 344 emails out to all those individuals. So if you haven't already, check your inbox. That should already be in there, and you can check out something else that we haven't announced yet that's already in that that PDF. So it'll be very cool, and we'll talk to more of that with Dan in the coming weeks as well. But before we jump into the show, let's head to the chat and say hello to everyone that is here. So Sazzy Gal, how are we going? Grace, good evening. How are we going? 4-day weekend for me. That's awesome. Always got to love that. And I know Mandeep and Moira are going to probably not stay for long or jump in and out over the next hour because they are at a Supernatural convention. So enjoy that.
I'm so jealous. The guest list is. I know you're not a Supernatural fan, but you have Jim Beaver there. You have Osric there. I saw the guest list. I wish I was there.
There's one here in Melbourne in June.
Was it? I think Grace just mentioned to me. Mike Crowley, which is I think his name is Mike Shepard. He's coming into Supernova in June, so that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yes. So, and we've also got Shane. Hey, how you going, mate? Hope you are doing well. I see that you're back into the swing of things. So
he's back.
Good to have you back, mate. So
he's been. I don't know if you know. Shane's been off for a while, but he's back. So I'm really glad. I'm not going to mention too much, but Shane just speedy recovery, and I'm really happy you're back.
Yes, and Jackie's here. I've always wanted to say that. So we've got Misha headlining as well. So, so if people don't know, Supernova in Sydney is actually going to be the 20th anniversary. And I can let you guys know here that I will be a guest at that convention. And I'm going to be dragging Stephen along, probably kicking and screaming, but I'm going to be dragging him along as well to that event. So that should be absolutely amazing to kind of be able to be at a 20th anniversary for an Australian event that's pretty much been for the first 10 or so years of its iteration, the only convention around type of thing. So, yeah.
I know. Look, I've been to a couple. Look, to be really fair, I'm not really big in conventions. It's, I know it's a lot of fun. It's not quite me, but Sean, you'll be there, so I'll drag myself there. I was there at Comic Con last year, though, so I got invited as a guest. So it was really cool of them. So I couldn't say no.
Yes, and it's always cool that there always seems to be something that kind of comes out of those conventions. So I did, say something cool happened to me at Supernova, but I haven't been able to sign off on that yet. So hopefully in 2 weeks' time, I'll be able to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight on what I will be doing. But before we jump into the movie, I also want to give an update on a few of our projects. We've got Terra Olympus 4 well into development, is almost completed. We have the Aquila spin-off for Fractured Shards almost completed as well. We're heavy into works on Volume 3 of Fractured Shards. I've already got the Kickstarter link up, and I'll share it with everyone for the 13th Labour issue number 3. Just waiting on a cover, variant cover for that one to announce the launch date, but that will be coming very soon. We're almost getting the colors done for Talus of Sparta issue 2, and I've got Stephen about to do some letters for the remastered version of XCT Most Wanted as well. Whew. Did I miss anything there?
I think you got most of it. It's going to be crazy for you. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and then Occupation as well. So that's one I'm very excited about as well. So but enough of that. Let's jump into the movie that we're going to be talking about tonight, and some of the rumors that have been flying around. I just finished watching this for a second time. It was my wife's first time watching it, but she sat in here and was watching it with me. But Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, spoiler alert, if you don't know, there might be an Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire reference once or twice while we're talking about this. So we feel like it's been out for long enough. It's on Blu-ray and DVD. You can go get it now. So I think we're given enough time and enough warning to let you know we're going to be talking about this. So.
Oh, look, we'll be good. We won't spoil any. We won't spoil the endings. We won't spoil any twists. We won't spoil any deaths or anything like that. So don't stress about that. But we're gonna spoil that everybody turns up. So you have basically nearly all the villains from both Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man turn up, and of course you have the original 2 actors come back in. So it's on all the movie posters. We're not spoiling anything, but what do you think? Well, did you enjoy it? It was a mammoth undertaking.
Yeah, I have to say this is my favorite Spider-Man movie. Out of all of them, I was a big fan of Toby. I was a big fan of Andrew as well, and then I've loved Tom Holland's take. But this movie, as its own movie, and I feel because I've seen all of the movies growing up and everything, just really pulled at the heartstrings on every level type of thing in regards to the way they tie in all 3 of the Spider-Mans, how they tie in what connects all 3 of them. And again, trying to do all this without any spoilers. But I think it was very well written, very well executed. And then on top of that, the 3 actors, you never know how, their chemistry is going to be, considering they've probably never worked together, and there's always probably a little bit of ego there in regards to, Toby, I was the first Spider-Man, I got the 3 movies, or all that type of stuff. But I cannot rate this highly enough. It's got to be it's definitely my favorite Spider-Man movie, and it would almost go as far as being my favorite comic book movie type of thing. So yeah.
Oh, look, going back to a bit to the comic book roots of it, it was actually based on there was a J. Michael Straczynski story called One More Day. I think One Day More, actually, the other way around, and it was probably the most hated of all story arcs of Spider-Man. Absolutely hated. Um, the premise was very similar. He did a deal with Mephisto. In this case, they did a deal with Doctor Strange to basically make the world forget he was Spider-Man, and it was absolutely hated. It was probably one of the worst storylines. It was even so bad that the writer J. Michael Straczynski, who used to be on Babylon 5, so this guy has huge writing chops. He actually said to the editor in chief in Marvel at the time, "I don't want my name on this. I wrote this. This is you made it an editorial decision for me to write this. I want you to pull my name." That's how much he hated that storyline, and the fans hated it. It was basically it plays out very similar to this movie, the comic book. It played very similar to this movie. He made the deal with the devil. In this case, he made the deal with Doctor Strange, and everybody forgot who he was. But the way this was done, man, I loved it. Like the comic was horrible, but it seems that the writing staff in this case knew exactly what to do with that storyline and actually flipped it. Have you read the comic for this one or not yet?
I have actually, and
Yeah.
I must have been one of the only people that actually liked this storyline because
Oh,
for me, I felt like it had Peter go like grow as a character. Like he's made a decision, whether that be right or wrong, and then kind of having to live with those consequences. What I hated was at the end of the story arc that they just clicked his fingers and everything went back to the way it was, as if that whole thing didn't
and
happen, and
that's
that's
one of the
what I kind of got frustrated over, because I was like,
yeah.
well, then what he's learned, that whole thing means absolutely nothing. It's like the Flash goes back in time, breaks time, and then comes back and it's like, oh, I better not do that again. But as soon as he gets in trouble, he goes back and does it again and breaks it again. I'm like, that defeats the purpose of the storyline if he's going to keep doing like the what he
Oh,
knows he
exactly.
shouldn't be doing type of thing. But yeah.
And I think, and you hit the nail 100% on the head of why the comics was hated and this was loved, because in the comics, one of the editorial decisions was Peter had grown beyond the scope of the audience. He was married, happily married to MJ. He was a teacher at the time, so he stopped becoming a journalist. He was a teacher. He was taking care of kids. He was responsible. He actually had power and responsibility. And at the time, Marvel decided, you know what? People can't relate to that. Our core audience being, you know, teenagers to young adults can't relate to that. He cannot be a teacher. No, he needs to revert back to carefree bachelor days and everything. So the ending, in terms of the comic, when it snapped back, he forgot everything. He forgot who he was. He was no longer married to MJ and all the rest of that. That was totally all wiped away. So exactly like you said, what was the consequence? What was the whole point of everything that happened? And the thing is, if you read most of the other Straczynski run, which was brilliant, there were so many sacrifices and growth along the way that Peter went through to
Yes.
have basically the entire run, and we're talking like hundreds of issues, just go, nah, none of it mattered. It, you know what I mean? You invest in the story and you just hate it. While in this one, that Peter still remembered who he was, in you seem and grasp the thing, should I, and this actually harks back to Spider-Man 1, which I actually really loved, where he had the chance with MJ back in Spider-Man back with Tobey Maguire to say, what should I do? Should I do the right thing, and walk away, or should I tell MJ and try to find my own happiness? Again, not spoiling too much. Tom Holland has exactly that same choice at the end, to go, you know what? Do I keep them safe or do I try to find my own happiness again? And I loved it because it actually gave consequences. It gave gravity to the action. It actually made him have a loss. as opposed to
Yeah.
the comic situation. It's like, you know what, not interested. And I think
But
that's what annoyed the
I
fans a lot.
find like, you know, I find that a bit of a cop out that they have to kind of keep going back to who he was. And I think that's, for me, I just find that really bad and lazy storytelling, because why can't he, like, you look to, and we're going to jump across
Yep.
to this, and I think this is a good segue, but you look at Into the Spiderverse, and you look at old drunk Peter then having to be a mentor to a young Spider-Man, and then try and help him navigate, you know, what he has gone through and pass on his. So, you know, there's definitely some great storylines that they could have done along that avenue, rather than, you know, wishing everything away. You know, he could have been that, you know, he takes on a protege and that type of thing, and gone down the avenue. But to kind of just tell, you know, what I thought was a pretty good story, and then just kind of go, okay, that didn't happen, we're just going to revert it back to the way it was, whether it was good or bad. I think, you know, should have just, the character should have just kept on developing from there. You know, if he become, you know, the Iron Man, what was it, in the bottle, demon in the bottle, where, you know, Tony's drinking all the time. Like, you could have had Spider-Man going down that avenue, going, well, what have I done? I've made the wrong decision, and I shouldn't have done that. And then, as you said, then that redemption arc comes in with, you know, having a protege or something. I just, that's just me personally. But yeah, on the flip side of that, I just think that they did that absolutely amazing with this movie. You know, and without doing any spoilers, Tom Holland Spider-Man actually has to make several decisions in this movie, and that's a key line through this movie. You know, whether the decision is right or wrong, you know, he needs to make a decision and then kind of live with that. So so hopefully we'll get to see another movie with Tom in it.
Yep. And so the cool thing about, and this is a really good segue. So the cool thing about all the rumors that are coming out, and there's so many of them, and there's people saying they've seen different people at different meetings, like they supposedly, and again, rumors only, they supposedly had a meeting with Sam Raimi already of the original Spider-Man trilogy, and what's going to call it, Tobey Maguire already. And the whole point about that one is exactly what you said. They're going to tell, because Sony only has one Marvel property, which is Spider-Man. Morbius didn't do very well, and I don't think I think it's a very bad play of Sony to start branching out into the lesser known spider characters. Like Venom is huge, so you know, you give Venom, but Morbius and stuff, they're much more smaller characters, and some of them, I'll be really honest with you, it's just not that interesting. Now, if you own Spider-Man, if you did say Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, he could have had that happy ending with Mary Jane. And then you could even launch straight into, there is an alternate version of Spider-Man who has a daughter called Mayday Parker. And you could launch that Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, launch that arc. So you have that, exactly like you said, that older Spider-Man, the more the dad figure. But he could be happy because, you know what, I just want to see a Peter Parker who's happy for more than one movie. You know what I mean? You could have that whole arc. So, and I know there's a couple more rumors we're going to talk about, but what do you think of that Tobey Maguire rumor that's coming true that Sam Raimi's agreed to sign back on, and that it's going to be about the daughter, Mayday Parker?
See, I think that's amazing. You know, he would be, one, age appropriate now.
Yep.
Two, Kirsten has already said that if there was a fourth one to be made, that she would be happy to reprise her role as MJ, which is fantastic. I feel like it needs a fourth movie as well, because the third one kind of doesn't really tie up, I feel, like Peter's story as a whole type of thing. So I think, a fourth one would really do that. And then if you introduce Peter's daughter, then, that can be the end of Toby's kind of, role, or he can just have cameos after that and then pick up the story from his daughter from there. So I really love that rumor, and I hope it's true. I was doing a little bit of research and can see that there are a couple of articles on like thegamer.com, which is like gamer news, that that the movie has Sony may have greenlit that Spider-Man 4, but yeah.
I really hope so. And the one thing which, in terms of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and I understand why they did it, but I think it was probably not the best decision. Tobey Maguire, even back in the original Spider-Man, he looks old. When he was in the high school scenes, it wasn't age appropriate. He looked like he didn't belong. That's how come the high school scene in the first Spider-Man movie lasted probably about half the movie, and then he graduated, and then he moved on. Now, if you have someone who's age appropriate, or at least has that baby face, like a more Tom Holland type face, you could have Mayday Parker staying in high school that little bit longer. And that's a lot of fun too, because if you look at Tom Holland's Spider-Man, although he was in high school, you actually didn't see much high school. In the second movie, he was gallivanting all around Europe. In the third movie, it really wasn't much about high school life. Let's be frank. It was he had much bigger problems to fry. And in only the first movie did they talk about prom, did they talk about parties and stuff like that. Now, if you introduce a Mayday Parker, you could touch more of the high school elements and still have that Tobey Maguire, like you said, that cameo, that father figure scene.
Yeah.
You still could have all that. And you could stay her that little bit longer in high school, and you could deal with a lot of the issues that weren't in the original Spider-Man. Maybe she finds about social media bullying. Maybe she finds about trying to juggle, trying to get into, a gifted program or whatever. You could have all those elements, which, let's face it, when I went to high school, primary school,
which some movies have done really well with. I talk about Scream, the latest one, Scream 5. Like, they did that really well in regards to bringing in like all the digital age stuff and everything like that, because you're talking almost 30 years or 25 years when the first Scream came out, type of thing. I was still watching VHSs, type of thing. I don't even think it was a DVD player that Randy was using, type of thing, to watch Halloween. So, I think that those type of themes, I should say the themes are always the same. But it's the different technology and the different mechanisms that those themes play out in updates over time. Like, there's always been bullying, but it used to be face to face, or meet you, chase you on the run home from school, or something, where now it's moved more onto that 24/7 social media, all that type of stuff. So there's definitely a lot of storylines that you could tie in with a young Parker type of thing. So, but moving on, the Amazing Spider-Man 3, I would love to see, but I have a feeling that it's going to be more of the fact that he might be in Venom 3 than he actually being getting a third Spider-Man movie. And I don't mind that either.
Look, I'm easy either way. I would still like to see him because, like I said, Tobey Maguire's at the age where he can be the dad figure. Andrew Garfield still looks like he's the age where he's the Spider-Man who's graduated. You know what I mean? That age group. And he could have and like, it was actually really alluded to in No Way Home. He said when Gwen died, he went on a dark path. And that was never ever really shown because the second movie finished. But it would be actually interesting to see Spider-Man in terms of almost a dark Spider-Man where anger and grief has taken over. Like he's still trying to do the right thing, but he's not who he used to be. And having that follow and that whole redemption follow, say, for one or two movies, I think that's a really interesting take you could do. Whether Venom is the villain
But
or
yeah,
Venom.
well, but that's what I'm saying. But that's why I think it would fit in with Venom 3, because if he kind of is going down that path, and Venom is that anti-hero type of thing, and he kind of gets the black suit and all that type of stuff, and as long as there's no dance scene coming out of a cafe or anything, but you could definitely go down that dark avenue. Like Andrew Garfield's portrayal in No Way Home was absolutely phenomenal. Like he played a broken Spider-Man so well. Like the way he spoke about Gwen, how he's, and there's really clever just one-liners that they throw out there. His conversation between Toby's Peter and Andrew's Peter about, us guys, we don't get to that stuff on the outside, and Toby gives him a little bit of advice and everything like that. It was very well written, and it didn't need a lot of dialogue to be really heartfelt. And I feel maybe that's because, for someone like myself, like I've watched absolutely all the films. I'm not sure if everyone else would get that feeling if they haven't seen them, but I just thought that part was absolutely fantastic.
The only thing I'm slightly worried about if they team up with Venom, and again, because Tom Hardy's Venom is very different to that really nasty Venom, because in the original comics, Venom was really nasty, and he was very vicious. He was the lethal protector. But the way they portray it in the movies, although he does allude to wanting to eat brains and biting people's heads off, it's actually played off a lot for laughs. And the way I was describing Venom to my wife, it's a buddy movie with an alien. And it really feels that way and that's the only thing I'm just slightly cognizant about, is that if they went down with Tom Hardy's Venom, it's different, because you want to take this dark path, but Venom has a lot of really light moments in it where half the time in both Venom movies is the symbiote and Eddie just arguing with each other, going, "No, don't do that. Yes, I will. No, I won't." And it's fun. And that's actually what makes those two movies really fun to watch. But having it too dark, the only thing I probably could think of is you get an alternate version Venom. And that's what I love about. That's actually what I love about No Way Home. It opens up all of that so that you could still be doing with Tom Hardy, but it's not the fun, happy Tom Hardy. It's the, he's done Bane before, so he could be the nasty, vicious Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess that leads into Spider-Man, into the Spiderverse. Like this animated film, if no one has seen it, really watch this. This is one of the best animated films that I've ever seen. Like, it is absolutely fantastic. It works for all ages. It's very, very well written, and the animation was probably, the style of it was something that I wasn't overly keen on when I first saw it, and I was like, I don't know whether I'll go watch this. It's not kind of something that appeals to me. But 5 minutes in, I was like, I absolutely love this style. Like, it was they used it very well in regards to the action scenes and all that type of stuff. So I would have loved to have seen another movie. I now know that you were just saying before that they're talking about splitting the next one up into two.
That's not a rumor anymore. It has been split.
Okay.
It's actually officially named Part 1, Part 2, which actually makes me more excited because it's saying this epic story we wanted to tell, we couldn't cram it into 2 hours. So we had to split it up. And I like that. I actually absolutely love when they try. Um, Justice League is probably the best example. When you try to cram everything in when it shouldn't be crammed in, you just get this horrible, horrible result. And
Yeah.
if you give the storytellers that chance to actually tell that story, it's all the better for it. Like Zack Snyder's Justice League is infinitely better than the theatrical release.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Like it's a totally different movie, and I'm really glad they actually listened for Into the Spider-Verse because at some point somebody might have, I'll guarantee you somebody would have said, we can't tell the story in 2 hours. Not what we want to do. We need to split it. And when they did, that's not a rumor anymore. It's happened. They've renamed it.
Now, I like that because when you're introducing so many characters, if anything happens to those individual characters, you need the audience to care about them. And it's very hard to do that if you're, as you say, trying to cram everything into an under 2 hour film. And again, this is going to be aimed at a lot of younger kids as well. So you got to think, are you going to be able to get a 6 or 7-year-old to sit for 2.5 to 3 hours to watch a film? It's going to be very difficult to get, so to split it over 2 movies is much clever, I think, than trying to cram it in all into one. So
Oh, definitely, and it's a testament to the writers and the studio that they actually listen. I think that's absolutely key that they go because they didn't listen with Justice League, and that turned out really, really badly. So I'm really glad that Sony or whoever's up there is actually saying, "Hey, we're listening and we're gonna take your advice for it." But it's just really, really, really cool that just out of No Way Home, how Sony has actually basically opened up the Spider-Verse. And I would say for Sony, the one thing that they should be looking at is going rather than, spinning off one or two small characters to actually go, you know what? We have infinite versions of Spider-Man. Let's start playing with that, play in that sandbox. And every 4 or 5 years, I mean, if Sony, if you want to steal this idea, you can reach out to me. I'll sell you this idea without a doubt. But every 4 or 5 years, then, if you have these different Spider-Man movies, you have your Avenger style movie where they all come together. So
yeah.
you still have all these things, but you're just playing your little sandbox because I know you only own the rights for that little sandbox, but guess what? You could still play there, and every 5 years becomes your Avenger type movie.
Well, I was just having a see nose before when I was talking about the Tom Hardy, the Tom Hardy
Andrew Garfield
Venom
thing.
3. And in here it says in December 2021, a notable industry scooper said Venom 3 will explore the multiverse as well as show Venom finally meeting and fighting Spider-Man. It was also hinted that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man will appear in the film instead of Tom Holland's version from the MCU. So that's what I was thinking about and talking about. Now that article only dropped 5 days ago.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So,
The other thing would be
so yeah.
it's easier for Sony because Tom Holland is still a shared property between Sony and Disney. Andrew Garfield isn't. Andrew Garfield is like, you want to sign me, and I'm turning up, and I really hope they do because look, I think out of all the MCU characters, Spider-Man has to be one of the more interesting because he's one of the characters who actually gone through so many iterations, so many reboots, reskins, you name it, it's all happened. That there's so many good stories out there, and what I want to see is the redemption arc of a lot of bad Spider-Man stories, which you go, you know what, the idea is good, but the execution was horrible, and actually have a competent writer go, you know what, I'm going to make it good. I'm going to take this absolute pile of the story, take the good bits out of it, and actually make it good. That's, you've got stories galore. You don't need to make anything up. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, really. You just need to execute really, really well.
Yeah. Now I do see that Jackie put up a comment. Didn't Garfield say he was taking a break? No, he didn't. He said and jokingly said that he had no plans to reprise the role, but he's now been labelled the biggest liar in the world because he kept on saying he wasn't in Spider-Man No Way Home. So that was just a tongue-in-cheek thing. So he definitely said that he would reprise the role. So whether anything has come of that or not, who knows? But I just think, Sony has played this very well in regards to building up their properties off the back of the MCU, and has now reintroduced a whole new generation to their older Spider-Man films. That now people are like, oh well, I want to people my age are like, oh well, I want a fourth Spider-Man, and people a little bit younger than me, I want a third Amazing Spider-Man, and all that type of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here, because there's a lot of villains that you could just do a story on. Like I would love to see them do a story just purely based from the villain's point of view rather than from the hero's point of view. I think the hero point of view has been done a million times before. So I would love to do a film where, and that's why I like the idea of, Venom fighting Spider-Man, but Spider-Man kind of being the villain in a Venom movie type of thing. So, yeah.
And they actually have a perfect big bad as well. If again, Sony, you can steal my idea if you want. I'm absolutely cool with it. But if they ever have the Avengers type style where, each of the Spider-Man have their own movies, and then there's an Avengers type movie 5 years out when they all... There is a character, and a bit of Spider-Man lore if anyone's interested. There is a character called Morlun, and he was actually introduced in the Straczynski run. So one thing that Straczynski noted, and and he's an absolute writer's writer. So he reads the craft, he reads the lore, he gives a lot of really good homage to what's gone before. And what he did note was a lot of Spider-Man villains are other animals, especially the early Spider-Man villains. You're talking Rhino, Vulture, one of the earliest, Dr. Octopus. So they are very much other animals. And then he explored the whole idea is why are all, and why, in terms of writing, it was probably something that Stanley thought, oh God, I need another villain. Like Green Goblin didn't come down until like about, almost 3-4 years later after original Spider-Man launch, before Green Goblin was introduced. But you got all these characters going, oh God, I need a new villain. What's an animal? Have we done Vultures yet? Boom, there's a Vulture, But one of the cool things about all those animals that they started investigating what they call the totem side of Spider-Man, where everybody is linked. And the great thing about why that's important was it actually linked up all the different Spider-Mans in the multiverse to say that, all the different Spider-Mans are all linked, and their powers are all linked to this particular spider totem. And basically, there's a villain called Morlun who's basically been consuming all the different Spider-Men and getting more and more powerful as he's killing each of them. And that was the big bad in Straczynski's run. And man, I would love to see an adaptation of that. And I don't care if it stretches 10 years to reach that point. But imagine if this particular villain starts killing off the versions of the Rhino, starts killing off versions of Vultures and Dr. Octopuses and all the rest of it. until he starts feasting on spiders, and that links all the remaining Spider-Man from the multiverse to come back to go, you know what? We can't beat him by ourselves. We need all of us to beat him. That's the big battle of my dream. And
I'd read that.
Know.
I would read and watch that, mate. So, but
have you read the series, by the way? Have you read the?
No,
the
I
whole
haven't.
Marvel
No, I haven't read that one. But
it's fantastic.
The thing that like absolutely baffles me as well, and I think it was Fox that did Fox do Deadpool? I'm pretty sure it's Fox that did.
It's Fox. Deadpool. Fox had X-Men. Yep.
Yeah, so they introduced like X-Men and characters that were not in the comics and everything like that. Like Sony could do the exact same thing in the Spider-Man universe, so nothing is stopping them from creating an amazing villain or big bad or something like that, and doing it. They just need to kind of have the right people and have everything in place to tell a good story. But nothing is stopping them from actually creating new characters within that universe. But
absolutely,
Spider-Man has like a really good range of bad guys and everything. Like you could tell a crime story and do Tombstone as the villain. You could do a heist film with Black Cat. You got the Hobgoblin. You got the Shocker.
Remember
a
Kingpin
cool Rhino,
was a Spider-Man villain first.
The Chameleon, like a murder mystery chameleon one. Like, they've got some pretty good characters to kind of work with. I know that they're talking about Craven and that as well, but there's only a certain amount of characters that you can pull their name out that can hold a movie by themselves, and Venom I feel like is one. I feel like Carnage could have been another that could have held a franchise by its own. But like Morbius and if you did just a Craven one, I'm not sure that they're big enough as to kind of hold their own. I feel like Black Cat definitely could, but yeah.
I think in terms of Morbius, and again, in the right hands, it could work, but in terms of a character, number one, he's not that popular, he's not that famous, so you don't get the oh god, it's Spider-Man, let's go watch it. You alienate a lot of people who go, who is that? I've never heard him before. Yeah. And it takes almost like a James Gunn type person to go, nobody's heard of Guardians of the Galaxy before, but I will make it work. The task is a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I'll say this with Star Wars, like, you know what? The task doesn't have to be hard. You can introduce new supporting characters or new whatever, but you've got this wealth of lore sitting in front of you, and you've got good and bad stories. Like I said, I really want to see good writers tackle the bad stories as well, to go, you know what? This could have been great if you had done this, this, and this. And
we can make this better.
Exactly. Because you've got, you don't need to create anything new if you don't want to. That you know what I mean? And if you do want to create something new, oh God, knock yourself out. The sandbox is just there for you to play with. And I think that's just the, I will say, take the Mandalorian, for example, like Baby Yoda. That's a very, very much a very new element to the whole Star Wars franchise. But yet they still, okay, you've got this new element, and we've got all these other really cool elements as well that, what's they call it? You got all these reoccurring characters. You've got the back to the dark saber. You've got all this lore that still keeps slipping itself back in. Yeah. And you've got this really cool new character. Like, who doesn't love Grogu? Baby Yoda.
Yeah, everyone loves Baby Yoda. That's it. And thanks, you got the Star Wars reference in. I didn't even have to do it this time around.
No, but I agree with you that you could easily but the whole point would be is don't discard it. Make your new characters by all means, but don't discard the lore because there's so much good stuff out there. You'd be silly just to go, you know what? None of it exists. I'm starting again. It's like, really? What a shame.
Yeah, definitely agree. But to go on to our tip for tonight, it's how to create a comic book, which I guess is like a very broad cover to topic to cover. Sorry about that. But a lot of the times, a lot of our Kickstarter tips and everything is all based around people that have already created something or already have something in the works. And after doing a couple of conventions and everything, I really kind of stopped and forgot to kind of go back to the very start and kind of go, okay, well, how do you go about creating a comic? So I'm just going to run through a few things very, very quickly. Each of these topics we could spend an hour just talking about individually, but Stephen, stop me if I'm off track or anything.
I'm dying to hear what you have to say.
But yeah, but I would say that the first thing you do is you start with an idea. So that comes from either a character or a story that you're wanting to tell, or a story arc that you're wanting to tell. From there, you go into your world building. So fleshing out your character, fleshing out the world, and all that type of stuff. Now,
can I stop you there for 1 second? And no, you're absolutely right. But the one thing you're missing in between those two steps is with your idea. Do two things with your idea. The first thing with your idea is write the damn thing down, because the first thing you find is people have, and it happens, by the way. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens to me. You have this grand idea. Oh, it's going to be epic. It's going to be whatever. Write it down. Because the sheer fact of writing it down makes you take it from this fantasy element to make it real. And what you find is, when people have this idea, is they find it very, very difficult to write it down because they don't really know what the idea is. Oh, it's a bit Star Wars. It's a bit Star Trek. They got this. And then the hero does this. And okay, write it down. And you find it that the art of actually writing it down forces you to conceptualize it. And when you're
100%.
writing it down, the first part would be is to what they call a tagline. And that's your one sentence. And I'll use that old Harry Potter stance. Boy discovers he's a wizard and goes to boarding school. That's Harry Potter. And you know what I mean? It's not a fantastic tagline. It's not meant to sell your book. Don't get me wrong. Writing down your idea isn't meant to sell your book, but it's meant to conceptualize in your head what the book is about. Now, let's face it. Harry Potter is basically a wizard who goes to boarding school, and he has a new problem every single year through his high school. That's the story. Conceptualize it. Understand what you're doing. And that then leads to your world building. And I'll jump back up because that leads to the world building part of it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think sometimes I skip the obvious part, which is to write everything down, because I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people have great ideas, but unless you get that down onto paper and start putting it into like contextualizing it, it actually takes a lot more effort. And I think also at that point that really allows you to identify whether the idea you have works or not. Because if you have that much trouble trying to get it down, then it's probably not the best story to start writing, because
it might be a great story to start writing, but you need to distill it, because let's face it, again, Star Wars reference. Star Wars is huge now. You can't cram Obi-Wan's story, you can't cram Darth Vader's story, you can't cram Luke's story all into one movie. It doesn't work. But when you start distilling it to go, you know what, I want to tell this story, understand that there's going to be the world building side, that Obi-Wan was here, Darth Vader was actually working with him as Anakin. Understand all that, but the original Star Wars is, I want to tell one story, which is this, and writing and distilling it down to what you want to tell. It's very, very difficult.
And then
And that's
understand that your story can change. So you look, again, going back to Star Wars, you look at the original 3 films, and really it's a story about Luke. But then you go over the 6 films, and it's like, well, actually, is it a story just about Anakin Skywalker and Vader?
Yep.
And then you go over the 9 films and go, well, what the fuck? But after you do your world building, you make sure that you go down and you've got your script. So you're building out the story, you're building out your characters, you build out your world, and you put that all into a script. Now, if you can draw, then that is great. Now, again, we're going through this quite quickly, but when you're writing a script, there's some really great programs that you can use, or you can just get like type in comic script, get an example of what a comic book script is, and just write it in Word. I don't know about you, Stephen, but I do most of my stuff just in Word. I don't pay for a fancy software program or anything like that. I just have gotten a script that I'd first initially went, okay, that's is what it's supposed to be looked like, and then just kind of made my own version from that.
And that's absolutely fine. Look, to be fair, at this point, how you do it is not important. It's what you get done. Just on the world building point, and this is probably, if anybody wants to know about world building, one of the absolute key elements about world building is your power source. So if you can identify what power source runs your world, a lot of things will logically fall out of it. And what I mean by power source is, take Lord of the Rings. A lot of the power sources were very medieval. You said normal fire, but you had magic as a power source as well. So you got that whole element in there. And now, if you identify the power source, basically the world falls out from that power source. And that's how come there's whole genres based purely on the power source.
Yeah.
You got steampunk, diesel punk, solar punk, biopunk. All of that is based on power source. So if you don't know where to start your world, start with the power source, because everything falls out. Again, jumping back to Star Wars, one of the big power sources that would identify as Star Wars is they could jump faster than light speed. So that, by doing that, you've established a lot of things. Just that one decision that spaceships can jump, hyper jump, move from one part of the galaxy to the other part of the galaxy. You've now established, oh gosh, the world is very interconnected. You now established there are starships. You now established there are aliens. You now established there are trading ports and all the rest. Again, please disregard movie 8. That just,
so after you've done your script, if you can't draw yourself, then the next part is finding an artist. So both Stephen and I usually get an artist to trial. So they'll do 1 to 2 pages, which we will pay for. And that is one to kind of see how your interaction is with an artist. We do say that going into a story with an artist is like getting married. It's quite a lengthy relationship, so you need to make sure that you pick the right partner. Then if your artist doesn't do colors, you need to find a colorist to color it. Otherwise, if you're just going to do black and white, you can cut out that colorist point. Now, I highly recommend you get a professional letterer. This is the one step a lot of indie creators and first-time comic creators are cut out, because they're like, oh, I can do speech bubbles, I can do that. Letters can really make and break a book, because remember, yes, you're visually reading the story, but you're also reading the words. And if the style of that is not presented in a really easy, digestible way, it can turn people off the book straight away. So this is one part that I can really stress, and it's actually probably not the most expensive part out of the whole process. So it's the one part that a lot of people their material gets let down by not investing in that part. So that's, you know, someone to do a really good logo, to lay out your book, you know, really easy to read, and that. Then also one thing I've done, and I regret it, is skipping over the editor. But I always find, you know, that's good, even if it's, you know, a family member or several family members and that are going over your book and, you know, doing that proofreading, making sure everything is right. And then the final stage is your printing. So you can either use the printer to you know, get your file all up to scratch, which can kind of be a little bit expensive, or you can get someone to produce the file for you that you then just send to the printer. And then the fun begins from there in regards to size, paper, stock, gloss, matte, all that type of stuff. But we did just want to kind of spend, you know, a couple of minutes just talking about that process, because as we said, we do understand that there's a lot of people out there that have been watching our show that haven't started a book before and might want to do it. And we've given a lot of tips on how to set up Kickstarter pages and all that type of stuff, but have never really kind of talked about, well, what are those steps moving forward. So I'm hoping in the next month or so I'll have a little PDF that I can flick out to everyone for free if you are interested in seeing that setup guide. So now I see that you've just shared something, mate.
Yeah, and I wanted to show you this, and this is just on the point you mentioned about lettering and colors and black and white. So it actually covers probably about 4 or 5 points you talked about. So on the right, you probably see it's black and white. The lettering on the right isn't bad. Don't get me wrong; it's actually not bad lettering, and it's not colored. Now, if you see the one on the left, when it's lettered professionally, it's colored professionally, and all the rest of it, it's really chalk and cheese between the two of them, and that's why everybody is saying is it. If you want to do it, there is an investment into it, but don't skimp on any of the details, because the thing about it is, I'm just talking about the lettering. Although you look at the pictures, you read the words, and when you see like too many things crammed into one speech bubble where they didn't split the speech bubbles out and stuff like that, it actually changes the way you read it, and it also changes the appeal of it. And on a good note, this is actually one of Shaun's projects, which would, you know, you're releasing this one, the remastered version.
Yes, this is the XCT remastered version. So this is the dragon story that you wrote, Stephen. So yeah, even I was surprised, like when I go back and look at some of my older work and that, and I can now identify going, okay, here are areas that at the time I thought I was saving myself money, but just the professionalism, the way it reads and all that type of stuff, it really is chalk and cheese. And if you want to check out more of this stuff, we've actually got it over at our Patreon, where you can read it at the moment before we do the Kickstarter for the short stories. So really excited to kind of re-release these in full color, with your amazing letters and that type of stuff in the coming months as well. So,
and look, and again, we'll say bye to the chat. Look, thank you so much for turning up. Like, it's really cool to just talk about the stuff we love, and as much as we both absolutely love Spider-Man. I've been actually dying to talk about this subject for a while. by the way, most of the stuff we said are rumors. We don't work for Sony as much as I would love to. We don't have insider knowledge. It's stuff that has been coming up, but I'm just really excited because I really would love to see Sony take Spider-Man into multiple versions of him and have that Avenger style movie every 4 or 5 years. And that's something to look forward to. Like, I have to admit, the first Avengers movie and the Infinity War stuff, man, I loved it because when you build up to something so big, you get invested.
Yeah, and we're going to continue on with this conversation next week with a guest. We've got Anthony Stokes talking about his Project Decay. And we will be talking about the movie Doctor Strange, which works out perfect because Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness will be released next week as well. So we're tying everything in together, and we have already got another couple of guests lined up for the next couple of weeks after that. So keep an eye out. Thank you once again, Stephen. Thanks for your time, mate. Thanks for everyone that has watched and will watch if they watch the replays at another time. But thank you so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash that notify bell. We go live at 10 o'clock each Sunday night, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we look forward to seeing you guys all next week. See you later.